Save your money. It is such a cliche statement that we, as consumers, have been hearing time and time and time again. I first heard about saving money when I was a teenager. I heard about saving money again when I was in my 20s. I heard about saving money when I was in my 30s. And now that I'm in my 40s, I still keep hearing people say, save your money. But is saving something that's really easy to do? Because I don't really think it is. I think a lot of people struggle with saving. They struggle with savings because, of life, everyday, day-to-day expenses. And some people struggle with saving because they just don't know how to do it, or they just don't have enough to save. But before we get into it, if this is the first time you're joining me, my name is Mel. This is Team U Finance, where we talk about leveling up our money. We talk about self-growth. We also talk about, motivation and how to continue living well and prosperous once we start attaining some type of wealth. What I was saying before is that, everybody talks about saving and putting something down, but a lot of people find it difficult. And let me tell you exactly why people find it difficult. The first reason why it's so difficult to save, in my own opinion, is because we're not even making enough to save, first of all. You get your job, you're wherever you work, corporate America, healthcare, whatever it is you do, and the salary that they pay you is not even meeting the cost of living. So you're making a set amount of money, but, to live, pay your daily bills, buy food, you're still having a deficit. It's too small. So as a result, whatever little you collect or the amount that you collect from your paycheck after paying all your bills, you can't even put anything down. Because whatever you put down, you got to go back and touch it again. And that's why a lot of people struggle with savings. It's not that people don't want to save. It's just because it's really hard to save. Another reason why I think people struggle with saving is because, as I said before, cost of living is extremely high, especially these days, this time that we're living in right now with the cost and the rise of inflation. Whatever you have coming in, you can't put anything down because, with everything going up, you got to spend that money that you would have put down to cover your daily, your daily lifestyle, your daily expenses. So that makes it a little bit hard. But I've always said and I've always felt that, even if cost of living is high, you're not making enough at your job, my advice that I always gave to myself, and I would tell people to save, is that I treated myself like a bill. I literally treated myself like a bill. And how I did that was I would literally basically set aside a certain amount. Like, let's say, like in my house, I have a bill that's maybe $250 a month. I would literally set aside in a month that I thought I was, value enough to save. And I would literally put that aside in terms of, saving the money. Because I figure if I can pay all the bills in the house, pay the water, the heat, the this, the that, why can't I pay myself? Why can't I value myself as one of those bills so I could set aside? Because essentially I'm saving, I'm preserving me, right? By putting something away. Because at the end of the day, no job is guaranteed. No placement is guaranteed. So if you end up losing that job or income is not coming in, you got to have something that's stashed away to help you in the long run. So that's why I started valuing myself and I started paying, myself literally. And how I ended up doing it, other than, paying myself through my job, setting something aside before I, eventually got my deposit, I literally started putting a little something aside in different accounts. In one of my previous videos, I had mentioned that everybody should have more than one bank account where they stash a little bit here, stash a little bit there. If it's even an extra $10 a week, so those little monies that you're not really thinking about, they pile up and you have them to spend on yourself. But before, going around and opening multiple bank accounts or even paying yourself, they always advised when I was growing up, and I even hear to this day, that the average person should try to at least save 15, to 20% of their yearly income. Now, is it easy to do realistically? Again, as I said at the beginning of this video, I think it's one of the most challenging things that people have to do because life happens. So take, for example, if you have your job, you're making at least $50,000 a year, and I'm just throwing some numbers out. And I decided that I'm going to try to save 15% of my yearly income. I'm going to do it. So, if I start, let's say in January, whenever, the fiscal year starts for you, you might end up saving yourself $7,500 for the year. But then again, would $7,500 be enough should in case anything happens to you? Because they tell us that, the average person should have at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses if anything happens. And again, these numbers and this advice is set, and, as I said before, it's very cliche. It tells you do this and do that and put this aside. But is it really realistic, the advice that, that they're giving us or telling us to do? So because I know that, life happens and we're human beings, that's like I said, I always try to pay myself, make myself a bill and put a little aside in addition to whatever I save on my job or what have you. The next thing is, they always encourage us that, we should save towards our pensions, our IRAs, etc., our 403Bs, all of those things. And they're all wonderful, goals. They're all wonderful, packages or programs to save towards. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is, if you should run into a jam and before, the distribution age or the retirement age, and you try to take some of that money out, you're taxed on your money. So it's like you're still kind of in the hole if you didn't have your own savings. And that's why it's so imperative that we need to start paying ourselves and we need to start saving our own money besides what we save in our companies or privately, with different banks, right? I always reiterate that another great way that somebody could save other than paying themselves is, those great old-fashioned high-yield savings accounts. And I love those because when you go down to the regular bank, I mean, if you're lucky to get 0.03% on a savings account, I mean, I don't know what bank is doing that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, the rates aren't really great when you go into regular banks. But when you invest in those high-yield savings accounts, you end up getting at least, anywhere from 3.75% up to even 4.5%. But again, to get those high yield accounts, you have to literally, do the research and see what bank is giving you a higher percentage yield. The good thing about the high yield savings accounts is that, those are basically like, fintech companies, or those are online banks. So they're not the regular where, they're literally in a brick and mortar building. So I believe in my mind that they're able to give a better interest rate because it's basically all digital. But I don't know about you, but I'd rather have my money, even if it's a digital bank. And I know some of us are a little old-fashioned and, we like going in and dropping our money and moving our money and interacting with a live person. But at the same time, going interacting in a bank, a regular brick and mortar bank that's not giving you more than 0.03%, if that much, doesn't really make sense. Where if you're doing it, with the fintech banks or the banks online, you end up getting a little bit more for your money. And you actually see those savings because, again, whenever a rainy day comes, you could literally borrow from yourself. You don't want to get into the habit of borrowing from, your pension or things that you have set aside for later because, again, they tax it so much. It's like you're paying when you file your taxes and you're also paying a certain amount before you get that distribution. But, a situation arises and we all have to do what we have to do as consumers or, as human beings. It doesn't really matter. We just have to try to get by. I also want to reiterate that another way, to save our money is basically when we have a little bit of money to stop giving it out. And I mean by giving it to people that we know, friends and families. We got to stop being ATMs for people. We have to stop. Sometimes, you might be a good, kind person and, you care about people and your heart is good. You're a good person and, whatever you do is going to come back as your blessing. But sometimes, people take our kindness for weakness. So as a result, sometimes we got to pretend that we don't have it. Even if we do have it sometimes and people come and ask for help, we have to pretend that we don't have it. We have to cry broke. And crying broke and pretending that we don't have it is just a way to allow us to preserve a little bit for ourselves in the long run. Because the way this economy is going, everything financially, it is very hard. It's very rough out here. If this is the first time you're joining me, again, my name is Mel. This is Team U Finance. If this content resonates with you, please like, comment, subscribe, share. Really do appreciate the support on the channel so far. Really helps me to get, my thoughts and, this content across, push it across the algorithm. So please, comment, like, subscribe, and share. Another thing is, I also have an ebook that I wrote about, money, about leveling up your money. It's called 10 Steps to Level Up Your Money. It's a quick read. It's an easy download. If you just, look in the link in the description, you purchase the ebook, you'll be able to see some tips and advice of things that you can do to, actually get your finances to elevate a little bit, or even it actually helps you to like prep and plan, and little gives you a little advice of where to set aside a little bit of money and so forth, and little things that we take for granted, like, again, like savings and, getting the right and proper insurances and all of those good things that we take for granted in helping to level up our money. So if you get a moment, like I said, link in the description, you could basically, pick up a copy. Hopefully you enjoy it. But in any event, what I was basically saying before is this. At the end of the day, it doesn't pay for us to throw our money out or give it out, or even put our money in accounts that are locked away for a certain amount of time where we can't get access to, where we got to pay to borrow our own money. It's like we're working so hard to save, but yet when we want our money, we don't even have access to it. It doesn't really work out. And it doesn't pay for us to constantly give our money away and, be an ATM and let everybody borrow from us. Or sometimes, even when they borrow from us, they don't even pay us back. Because some people are fooled to believe that, just because I look like I'm doing great doesn't mean that I'm doing great. Maybe you see my blessing or that glow, that the Lord has bestowed on me, but it doesn't mean that I myself don't need help. So again, I don't want nobody taking my kindness for weakness. But in any event, all I'm simply saying is that preserve for you. Back to the cliche statement, save your money, okay? Put down for your rainy day. Make yourself your bank. Deposit on you, deposit in you, invest in you. Because at the end of the day, they always say that you're responsible for your own happiness. Well, I would add to that and say you're responsible for your own financial growth. If you don't take the time to grow your finances or invest in your finances, or if you don't take the time to put down for your rainy day, nobody else is going to do it. What is so sad about this whole thing of saving and putting down for tomorrow is that some of those same people that you help, when you're down and you're depleted or your funds have run down, they're the same people that are going to sit there and say, oh, he's useless, she's useless. All them years they've been working, they don't have nothing. They don't have a pot to piss in a window to throw it out. That's what they're going to say. But listen, we're not, worrying about what people are going to say in the end. As I said before previously, we're not looking for people's validation. We don't need anybody to approve how we spend our money. We just need to worry about saving enough or putting some money down so that we can have something should we fall in hard times. We have something that, that we could fall back on. We can borrow from ourselves. We can just easily get access to our money, and we don't have to be at anybody's mercy and everybody insult us and just, literally treat us bad because we're, doing bad. But in any event, people, if you got this far in my message, I thank you for your time. Please have a wonderful, wonderful day. And again, if you get a moment, please pick up 10 Steps to Level Up Your Money. It's a wonderful read, and I think it gives some great tips and advice on how to actually level up your money. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.